Well, that was unexpected. To be completely honest with you guys, the moment that Culifoth portal opened up, our minds went into overdrive at the idea of getting a God Hand appearance at this stage in the story. But after that last chapter, we had our doubts, and this chapter pretty much confirmed those doubts, that no major development was going to take place in the plot this time around. That's true for pretty much most of chapter 380, except two important details that are highlighted at the beginning and the end of it. In this video, we will be taking a deep dive into everything that happened after Rakshas found Guts' cell and what it means for the future of Berserk. So sit tight, because you might not like the ride we're about to take you on. A struggler's acceptance and his allies' rejection, Guts finally embraces death. Let's get this party started with the question we're sure is looming large on everyone's minds right now. Just what the hell is going on with Guts? When Rakshas arrived at his prison cell at the end of the last chapter, we thought that was going to lead to some kind of major character development. Guts would be put in a choose to live or fight to die kind of scenario, and we thought that choice was what was going to make or break his character. But turns out, that's not the case. Not by a long shot. When Rakshas came to his cell, we expected Guts to do something about it, but he did nothing. He took one look at the guy and said something we never expected him to say. He called him his personal angel of death and welcomed his cold embrace. Guts bowed his neck in anticipation of an execution, and Rakshas took perverse pleasure in that. He cut through the bars of his cell and was about to do something. We know his claws were out, so he might just have been preparing to kill Guts, which would make sense, what with him being a sacrifice and all. But before he could make another move, two katars plunged through his neck and took his head off. From the shadows, Silat emerged as the man who finally took down the exile of his clan. Rakshas commended the young master for being so persistent and clandestine with his approach, because he took the best assassin out with the element of surprise. As his body melted into a bloody, shadowy heap, Silat couldn't keep himself aloof anymore. When he first encountered Guts' party at sea, he treated him the way Daiba's prophecy told him to treat the guy. Apparently, Guts was destined to bring death and destruction to the Kushan homeland once he appeared in their waters, and Daiba was highly concerned about that fact. When he saw Silat towering over Guts, shouting at him, asking him for a reason for submitting to death so meekly, he panicked and sent the Tapasa to draw him back. Daiba looked super tensed about the fact that Rakshas had died, but nothing seemed to have changed. His history with Guts is not like Silat's, because Daiba only knows him as a worthy adversary. To Silat, Guts is the man who changed his life, made him a better fighter and a better leader. He acknowledges the impact that their two encounters had on his entire life philosophy, so to see him in such a heap is shocking for him. Warriors do not submit to death like that. They stand up and fight against insurmountable odds, and Silat knew Guts was a true warrior. He had cut down so many of his men in front of his eyes that he wouldn't risk sending in his Tapasa after him, because he knew Guts would kill a few of them, if not all. The Black Swordsman was a symbol of the madness of battle, honed to a lethal edge that, when unleashed, could make nature itself bend to his will. But right now, he was acting like a beaten dog. Silat didn't know the details about Guts losing Casca and things of that nature, but he knew this was not like him, so he had to be pulled away from him. As for Guts, we can pretty much guess why he gave up so easily, and that is the fact that he longer believes in himself. Ever since Griffith kidnapped Casca from Elfhelm, Guts has been spiraling into despair because the one thing he'd always relied on had betrayed him in the end, his sword. Guts couldn't land a single strike on Griffith when he revealed himself to be the Moonlight Boy, and that utterly shattered his spirit. When his Beast of Darkness broke free in chapter 373, Guts didn't even try to stop it. He made one attempt at getting up and raising his blade to meet his demons in battle, but even there, Griffith had him beat. He threw up and passed out instead, regaining consciousness in the Kushan prison, where he now lives with Rakshas's corpse and mask. To him, life has lost all meaning, because that one move by Griffith undid years of work. Guts had struggled through hell to get Casca healed, and just when things were looking up, she was taken from him. It was as though he'd lost all meaning to live, and that is why he was so cool with Rakshas killing him. For the first time, Guts does not want to fight to survive. He just wants to die. He wants a release from his eternal torment, because it's always one step forward and 10 steps back with this God Hand business. It might seem like a Studio Gaga cop-out to some of you, but to us, it makes sense he'd crash and burn at some point. Berserk is a story about the human spirit after all. Gut's spirit has burned extraordinarily bright for the longest time, but the brightest lights cast the darkest shadows. We're honestly surprised it took him this long to finally give up, which is why the name Struggler fits him so well. Now that Guts has a new lease on life and his friends are determined to knock some sense back into him, what will he do with it? That remains to be seen, but something tells us he will have reason to hope again pretty soon. Speaking of his friends, the Kushan Empire lives to fight another day. Farnese's casting of the formation of the Four was the starting point of the Kushan retaliation, and once Silat had united their will to survive through thought transference, it was only a matter of time before they turned the tide. That happened a lot faster than expected, because this chapter began with the Kushan counterattack's final push. The citizens, Ricket, Silat's soldiers, were all working overtime to defeat the troll threat, because the truth is, trolls by themselves aren't that strong. The people realized this once they started fighting back, and one of the most impressive things is the fact that Isidro didn't even break a sweat backing up Azan in that narrow alley. In fact, he was impressed the Kushan adapted so quickly, seeing as they'd probably never fought trolls before. Roderick was in the middle of simping for Farnese yet again, but you know, she did save his butt, so we'll give him a pass for this one. But what impressed us most honestly was the response of the Elfhelm mages, who abandoned their inhibitions and cast a collective formation of the Four which cleansed the entire capital of malign astral creatures and sent the Cliffoth portal retreating. The Elfhelm mages had been panicking ever since they lost their homes, and they weren't battle-tested to say the least. Their great gurus weren't on the streets when the trolls showed up, so we have to assume that they decided to step up by themselves. It takes a lot of courage to get out of your comfort zone and take action during a time of crisis, but their collective spirit kept them safe and secure. The Elfhelm mages might never have fought in a war before, but they'd known each other their entire lives, and they knew that together they were strong. So strong, in fact, that they cleared out a massive astral portal by themselves, with no direction. Schierke would have been proud of their battle response, because she knows just how much of an adjustment it is getting into that gear mentally. One of the best things to come out of this counter-offensive is the fact that Isidro seems to have changed his mind about abandoning his post. He was fully planning on skipping town before Guts got out of prison because he needed to go find Isma. But now, cooler heads have prevailed, and besides, Azan has taken him under his wing. When Isidro doesn't make a move towards the royal palace, Azan asks him what he's waiting around for, and we're assuming the young lad finally decides to put his faith in the people that he's worked with for months now. Deep down in his heart, Isidro knows that he will need Schierke's help to get Isma back, and we're pretty sure he's concerned about her well-being too. While we're on the topic of well-being, Puck realizes that Guts was basically defenseless throughout all this, so he gets concerned and flies off to check on him. Our hope is that seeing his old friend will restore some of Guts's will to live, but that's a long shot considering the state he is in right now. Ricket manages to survive the night and reunite with Erica, who was worried about him, but is now worried about the fact that their last safe haven was turning into a war zone as well. If the God Hand was resurrecting apostles to go after their opposition, what did this mean for the rest of the world? The Kushan Empire stands to fight another day and has taken out one of Griffith's most important generals. They're united by their general Silat and will probably have a decent physical and magical response to the Falcon of Light, now that the Ethelhelm mages are ready for action as well. The Resistance army is prepared for the fight in their minds and their hearts, and pretty soon they'll have a plan of attack as well. How Guts figures into it remains to be seen now that he's fallen this far into despair, but you know why we have hope for him. That's because he's always got Best Girl on call to keep him safe from the abyss, and she very nearly came back to help him out in this chapter as well. When she realised that the situation was in hand, she doubled down on her original mission, because she knew it would at least shine a ray of light through the ominous clouds of despair spreading out of Falconia. The return of our little witch, Schierke's spirit, makes it to Falconia. In the final few pages of chapter 380, we see everyone's favourite witch girl make her return. The panels shift closer and closer to Schierke's forehead until we enter the ethereal landscape and see that she was on her way back to her body. When she saw that her help wasn't required, she headed right back into the world spiral tree, because she'd finally found the target she's been hunting for several days now. Schierke Mind travelled to Falconia, and the last image of chapter 380 is her spirit hovering outside its gates as she vows to bring back Casca. So what exactly happened here? Well, if we're right, then the reason Schierke's been out of commission for so long is that she was figuring out how to navigate the Dragon Path. Being the deepest and most complex roadway into the astral world, the Dragon Path was connected to several layers of existence, and it would be impossible for someone without advanced astral perception like Sonia or Griffith to navigate it safely. Schierke is a fairly prodigious mage, but even she isn't on Sonia's level when it comes to natural talent for astral activities. It's quite possible that she was taking an insane amount of time to figure out the kinks of the Dragon Path to her allies outside, but to her, it felt like only minutes had passed. Time works differently across different dimensions, so what keeps pulling Schierke back to her body? To put it simply, it's trouble. The first time we saw Schierke after she performed the projection ritual aboard the Seahorse was in Chapter 376, when she saved Guts from being swept away by a mysterious tide. That could have just been a dream, considering Guts has been delirious of late, but something tells us it wasn't. That's because Schierke has a spiritual link with Guts, which probably allows her to sense his spirit whenever it's in mortal danger. If that vortex that was pulling him inside was in fact the abyss, then Schierke must have sensed that and pulled Guts out of it, like she pulls him out of the Berserker armor. She must have also been on her way back to her body in this chapter, because she sensed Rakshas and Kulifoth and didn't entirely trust her apprentice's ability to respond to it. That's not us saying Schierke didn't trust Farnese with her life. We're saying she was unsure how she would deal with a threat of this magnitude. Turns out, just fine is the answer, and Schierke is free to resume her journey through the World Tree's branches. Having spent enough time within the Dragon Path, she's finally figured out the navigation systems, and she arrives at Falconia, armed with the knowledge that Casca is somewhere inside it. Schierke needs to be extremely careful now, because this is where the true danger begins. She has to avoid detection from any of Griffith's captains that can sense astral spirits, and more than that, she has to mentally prepare herself for a shocking revelation. Over 100 chapters before 376, Schierke met a young girl in Vritannis while her party was looking for a way to get to Elfhelm. They had an adventure where they saved a bunch of kids from being sold into slavery, and they connected with each other based on the fact that they were both loners in this world because of their gifts. Sonia had always been sensitive to the astral world as a walking oracle, and Schierke was a witch in training. Their bond was sealed with a prophecy that one day the owl and the kite would meet again. But we don't think either of them expected their reunion to play out like this. Schierke is going to have a pretty rude awakening when she realizes that Sonia serves the very man that she and her friends have been pursuing for so long. And we suspect we won't see that impasse occur for a while, but we are sure that it will, and the fallout of the same is going to affect Casca's rescue. Schierke knows she's in enemy territory by herself. She has fought in enough battles to understand that keeping herself hidden is her top priority. If it was just about getting in and out of Falconia for a quick reconnaissance mission, that would be different, but Schierke was here on a rescue. Even if she finds Casca, she doesn't have a physical body to enable her rescue, so she will need someone on the inside to help her out. Who better than the medium of the Falcon herself, who is trusted as he is in these parts of the world? The question is whether Schierke will be able to convince Sonia of Griffith's true nature, and that is a question we expect to at least be floated in the next chapter. Sonia is hopelessly in love with her dear Falcon of Light, so discovering his true nature can potentially wreck her beyond repair. Sonia will need to be on top of her game if she wants to game her way out of Falconia with Casca, so you can expect the manga to shift to Schierke's perspective for at least the next couple of chapters, if not more. Studio Gaga has been following a strict 3-act structure with most of their chapters, so it's possible we'll also see the fallout of Guts' in action, but we don't expect that to be the complete focus, now that the Falconia rescue mission is truly underway. Berserk still has a long way to go, but we've started inching towards the ending at the very least. And speaking of endings, marvelous verdict. That's all we've got for you for this one. Let us know what you thought about Chapter 380 down in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Berserk content, and we will see you guys in the next one. Till then, do remember, keep struggling, strugglers.